You're listening to Second Cut. This is the podcast where we talk about topics in film theory, criticism, history, and whatever else we could think of. I'm Jacob, and I'm the one who forgot the movie he chose was not animated.
Oh, I'm Sam, and I'm the one who kind of thinks maybe Takashi Miike should do an animated kids movie at some point.
I'm Kieran. I'm the one who the kids in my movie are much better at football or soccer than I am, but that isn't hard.
Yeah. We picked a topic where we watch kids movies from people who are not typically associated with kids movies.
Yeah, it was quite hard to come up with a name for this episode. Like, how do we do it? And this also brings we came up with like serious directors, family films, something like that. But this also does bring up the point of: does that mean that people that direct children's film or films aimed at a family audience aren't serious directors? Like, I would argue that the people that have done quite a few kind of Pixar movies, like who is it? Is it Brad Bird or something? That did like Incredibles and a couple of others. Like, I'm fairly sure he is very happy being a serious director and a major player in Hollywood. Like, it's just you can't argue with it.
Pete Docter, behind Inside Out and Up.
Yep.
It's, I mean, it's this whole debate that always comes round, like people dismissing animations of just cartoons to keep the kids busy. So it's kind of interesting that you have directors who are known for more serious fare or more adult fare, also dipping their toe in kind of more family friendly stuff. So yeah, they're all pretty versatile, which is nice to see, because you must get bored doing the same thing all the time. I mean, as good as he is at doing it, I'm not sure if I need to see another Scorsese Italian American mob movie. Really, I think how I feel there.
Jacob's just like, hold me back.
I don't think that's even half his filmography, Sam. Come on.
Oh, it just feels like it.
I mean, equal with Takashi Miike, he doesn't just do violence, horror, gangster films. He's done so many different things all the time, but that's what he's best known for. So.
Yeah, and it's weird. We were talking about Friends with Benefits last week or the week before. Last week, I think it was. Doing that in 2011, and then 3 films later, his 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7th and 8th films are the 2 Peter Rabbit films. Which as somebody that worked in a small cinema that was opening up after COVID, I think I've said this before, Peter Rabbit 2 kept us in business. Because if you it's just kind of, kids will come to see it, and there were times where like one showing it was a small film cinema, we had like 2 screens, and maybe, I don't know, sometimes you'd get 5 films in a day with 2 on other things if we open up late and close at around 10ish. But there are some times where it's like a half sold out thing for Peter Rabbit would outsell all the other screens combined, kind of thing. So like the kids films attract.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's Friends with Benefits, which is not a kids film with material that definitely is not family friendly. It's like, are we saying that he's not a serious director? Is he a serious director? Like, where's that line in this?
I think if we're in our specific context of the directors we picked, I think serious makes films that are explicitly not for children, dipping their toes into let's make something that maybe the whole family can sit down and actually enjoy together, and it not just be, I went and saw the Smurfs and it was just slop. It was real bad. So
I was gonna say, whoever made the Emoji Movie is probably like, yeah, I'm not doing this again.
Yeah, like there is great kids stuff, but then there's also just a bunch of junk that capitalizes on children. It's not as thoughtfully made and not as enjoyable for everybody.
I mean, in any given year, it's usually about half of the top 10 at the end of the year is stuff aimed at kids, isn't it? Because get a family in, get buy 5 tickets instead of 1, and then all these snacks and everything else, and they might want to see it multiple times as well. It's It's a good model to build on. I mean, even just this year, we've got the Lilo and Stitch remake, which I think is it the third biggest movie of the year? I think at the minute.
Something like that. Yeah, I think Minecraft and Ninja 2 have topped it currently.
Yeah,
it made money that movies don't make anymore. It is in the top tier of generating money at the box office.
I mean, like,
and it's not good.
Did it. Frozen 2's done it. You know, there are some that haven't, but quite a few of them. Minecraft movie, I would say, is a kids' film, or at least a family film. You know,
yes.
And that's like, if in doubt, never doubt the power of a kids' film. You know, like, this is just how it works.
Yeah. And Kieran, you did some deep reading about pretty much all I knew about the history of children's films. Really, it just goes with Disney. You know, I haven't put a ton of thought into like what else was there throughout history.
Yeah, so I was just looking at the first few pages of the Oxford Handbook of Children's Film, edited by Noel Brown, just to get a couple of ideas for a couple of talking points. Not reading too far into it, which probably should have done, but we all have lives. When we become professional film critics and historians and academics, we will have the time to actually do this stuff. But he was mentioning stuff like the opening paragraph for this. So this is Noel Brown writing in the introduction, noting that. Obviously, on December 28th, 1895, was the premiere of the Kinematograph by the Lumiere brothers. And in the 10 films shown, strangely enough, not the train arriving at the station. That was not in the first catalogue. And I'm sure we'll talk about that film later in the episode. But in that first lot of 10, there is the famous short of, I think it's called The Sprinkler Sprinkled, or The Gardener, or there are French titles, I don't know, I'm not going to say it, but it's essentially, people might have seen it. It's one where there's somebody gardening and somebody comes along and steps on the hose pipe and it kind of doesn't do anything, and he looks at it and they release it again and he gets water in his face. It's probably one of the first, is it perhaps the first slapstick film, maybe? Like, that is classic slapstick right there. Like, we've all seen it. It's in Looney Tunes every 3 episodes. But the person that steps on it is a child. So there have been arguments, at least in the past children's film, this focuses on a child. Is this the origins of children's film? There was, again, noting in this handbook that if not for on kids' films itself, then the idea of acknowledging that children go to film and differentiating between a general audience and a children's audience is a thing. So they were noting that the Eden Musée in Manhattan, I'll read directly from the text. The Eden Musée in Manhattan, New York, also held special Yuletide film shows for children from 1898 onwards, advertising a children's Christmas pantomime kinematograph. Adults and children paid different admission fees. Evening shows cost 35 cents for adults and 15 cents for children. And the theatre also offered a Saturday school children's matinee for 10 cents. And there were some tours and stuff like that for children and things like that. Apparently there was a tour by the Great American Bioscope, presented a film show in Middleover in Great Britain in February 1900. The screening was promoted as free from vulgarity throughout, and the admission fee for children was 1 penny as opposed to 3 pence for adult patrons. So there's some other stuff as well, but it's interesting that even right from the beginning, they do acknowledge, even if we're not kind of specifically making films for children, there are 2 different types of audiences and we need to separate them out, and we're charging less and commercializing it for that side of thing. So that side has been around since kind of the beginning of things. But one of the issues that you kind of get, as hilariously enough they point out in kind of the second section of this, and I'll again, apologies for reading directly from a book, but I think it very nicely sums it up. Starts off a section, Questions of Definition, with, it has become something of a tradition that a book about children's films opens with a lengthy preamble that attempts to unpick the problems, or at least the ambiguities, of definition. And yeah, I think anybody that's read any kind of film book on film genre has the same thing. We think we know what it is and we go for it, and then we spend 100 pages quoting Steve Neal going, we don't know what a genre is. This is kind of how it works.
You cite the I know it when I see it pornography line from a U.S. court.
Yeah. Well, with genre, there's the whole thing of until you know what a genre is, how do you know which films to go out and pick out in order to prove that this is a genre? And you get into a kind of endless loop on that. But in this somewhere, Brown, we've got here. Brown suggests 5 broad overarching conventions, and maybe we can touch a little bit on these conventions before going into them and say whether we think they apply or not. I'll admit I haven't got far enough through this to know whether this person agrees with them or not. But we perhaps do our own little argument. So 5 things. He suggests 1, the reaffirmation of family, kinship, or community, and community. Second point, the foregrounding of child or childlike figures, which is including symbolic children such as animals and immature adults and their experiences.
Adam Sandler movies are kid movies.
So hope not. 3, the exclusion and or eventual defeat of disruptive social elements such as criminals or other wrongdoers. 4, the minimization of adult representational aspects such as sex, strong violence, or extreme suffering. And 5, predominantly optimistic, emotionally uplifting ending. Goes on to say that other fairly common story elements include foregrounding of animals, magic, adventure, and play, and an emphasis on children's coming to terms with their place in the world, coming of age, that kind of thing. So these kind of things, I think they apply to some things, but again, like everything, you have optimistic endings in films that aren't children films. You have some films which are kind of that can go for children, but actually do have extreme violence. I think, let's be honest, the first 5 minutes of Finding Nemo is scarring if you kind of take it out of context. And even in context, it is violent and terrifying with mass murder of several hundred newborns.
I mean, loads of people are, have talked about being emotionally scarred by Disney at an early age, and all those parents dying, horribly. But they also say that with kids that I think this is why this is what Spielberg often gets right with his kind of younger end kind of films. Kids like to be kind of excited and a bit scared, and they don't want completely bland stuff, but just maybe not absolutely harrowing stuff.
Well, again, this introduction is kind of also talking about kind of sometimes you'll say things like, "Oh, it's got a child as a focus, therefore it is a children's film," and then he points out, "Yeah, but The Exorcist has a child as a focus. That's definitely not a children's film."
I think another way to kind of frame that is looking at it through at least for Hollywood movies, the rating system. Where before they are allowed, for a long time before they were allowed to be released, they had to be super reviewed, and now they're just sort of categorized, and G versus PG in America would kind of tell you, is it for a younger kid or is it for a little bit older kid, can handle a bit more of the aspects that are more adult in things like Star Wars or something like that.
Yeah, I think your G is our U, which I think stands for universal.
Yeah. And then we have PG, and then we have 12 after that.
It's 12A.
And that's what. Yeah, sorry, 12A. Yeah, which
12. You can be 12 on your own, or you can be younger than that if accompanied by an adult. So if they think you're especially mature child, but you're not quite 12 years to go on your own, you can go see it with the company of an adult. But yeah, so very quickly, this person is kind of also talking about the fact that there are some films that kind of aren't children's films, but kids enjoy and noted. So conversely, action adventure movies such as Jaws and the James Bond series often appeal to and are widely consumed by children. So then you go.
I probably watched Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom way too young.
Exactly. So it's like Indiana Jones is something which kids like. I remember kids playing around like that in sort of the schoolyard in primary school, 7, 8, 9 years old. But Temple of Doom is that and Gremlins kind of got the rating system changed in the US, because when it was released, it was essentially not explicit. Therefore, it was for a general audience, and everyone went, "This is not." There's like mass violence and people getting their bloody hearts ripped out. Like, what are we doing here? We need to change something.
Sam,
But
I think for
7-year-olds like it.
Sam, for people closer to our age than Kieran's age, watching it when you were way too young was a thing that happened because the Tim Curry television version.
Yeah, I mean, it was something I was aware of. I must admit, I hadn't seen it until much later. Really, I didn't really grow up with that, but I'd seen images from it. I knew kind of what it was.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of like an example of something I saw way too young, really, just as a kid. What would my dad have showed me that he thought, oh, you'll be all right with this?
Monty Python.
Yeah. Well, we talked about like a few weeks ago talking about Leslie Nielsen. You know, a lot of like the spoof parody kind of stuff. You know, like but Blazing Saddles and Naked Gun films, stuff like that. I saw them very young and said probably some of those elements probably weren't suitable for for someone of about 10. But
That's a comedy. They'll be fine with it.
yeah, but I think of things like the Star Wars films that were always PGs traditionally, weren't they? And then you had Revenge of the Sith, which has Anakin horribly burning on the side of a volcano, and I think that was the one scene that really gave them pause. Like, can we really release this as it's definitely going to be 12, but can is this horrific enough on its own?
Even before that, you've got a bloody arm being sliced off in the original thing for A New Hope, because they hadn't got the idea of the lightsaber cauterizing wounds yet. And then in Empire Strikes Back, he cuts over, it's the Tauntaun, isn't it? And like, I'm fairly sure there's a load of guts that spill out that he hides inside them. Like, and there's arms being chopped off and things like that. So it can't necessarily be violence or kind of bloody depictions.
And I'm pretty sure the first Sam Raimi Spider-Man also got to reconsider certification somewhat, because it was like the first of these superhero movies, kind of rated for all audiences in theory, for general audience in theory, but like visible bloods, in the final fight, between him and Green Goblin, there's quite a bit of visible blood in it, and he basically gets impaled by his own contraption, doesn't he?
And I think it's Wojciech Andrews Wojciech Andrews, I think it is, in his book was saying, because I read a couple of pages of that, and he was going, when I started this, part of my thing was I had kids and they were growing up with certain films, but then when they got to about 7 or 8, those weren't good enough anymore, and then they wanted to watch things like Terminator and Batman, and those were fine. It's like, I knew kids in the schoolyard that sort of 7 or 8, and they're walking around with Terminator 3 t-shirts on. I hadn't seen them at the time. It took me many years to get around to Terminator, but I'm then going and thinking, I knew 8-year-olds walking around with Terminator t-shirts. Realistically, an 8-year-old should not be seeing Terminator. Like, it's just not a thing that should be happening.
I probably saw the Terminators and the Alien films again way too early, because I was kind of good. I liked cool creatures and aliens and robots,
And even something like Burton's Batman movies are really dark, but a family kind of audience. I mean, there's stuff in there that is pure nightmare fuel, realistically. And imagine like, it's Batman, it's superheroes. Our 5-year-old will be fine with that, and then showing them Burton's Batman. It's just like, this is not good. Like,
but Batman Returns especially caused, I think, Burger King, to just absolutely lose themselves, because they had like a sponsorship deal with these toys, and then they saw like the other footage. It's like, oh my God, what's this creepy oily penguin creature? It's like, we can't make a toy of that. So let's make like a more a cartoony version of the character, I think, just for the toy.
And Michelle Pfeiffer being borderline not suitable for children. Like,
she's a full-on S&M dominatrix, isn't she?
Well, yeah, like, it's just, so where do you draw the line?
Well,
these kind of things?
I think that's where we go back to those 5, sort of features or tenets or whatever. What sort of is the framework we can look at for what is a kids movie versus what's a culturally allowable movie for kids to watch, or just what they end up watching. But yeah, I think the 5 things you said do describe at least two of our films. The third one,
Yeah.
I think it's a bit iffier.
Yeah. And
but-
are we saying kids film or are we saying family film? Because there are some films which are kind of more open for a family. There are quite a few Christmas films, for example, that are kind of, you know, family films, like something like even like Miracle on, what was it, 46th
Yeah.
Street, something like
That first fourth.
That's the one.
Yeah.
It's kind of a family film. It's not necessarily aimed at children, but the whole family can enjoy it. But there are kind of, I don't know, Disney kind of, you know, films which are specifically aimed at, you know, younger children.
Yeah, I would say
Patrol movie,
mainstream,
like
mainstream Hollywood animation. I would say you consider most of them family, general family films. Wouldn't you?
I would argue that they're used interchangeably in the way that we categorize on like streaming services and stuff. So I don't personally see a difference in the way that we practically use the idea.
Yeah, because I would say something like, for example, like Paw Patrol movie is definitely for much younger audiences, but something like, let's say, Pirates of the Caribbean, it's realistically still a family film. Admittedly, it's 12A, so it's the older end of that, but it's something that if you're 7 or 8, you can enjoy it.
Yeah.
Good 7 or 8. And if you're 50 or 60, you can enjoy it. Yeah.
Yeah. I still can't believe the third one of those opened with a load of pirates being hung on camera. That was like possibly pushing a bit far for the 12.
Well, the second one, you've got people in the cage getting their eyeballs gouged out and stuff like that. Admittedly, it did make them worried, which is why they put the kind of slightly higher rating on it. But they also believed in pirates because, like, first film in a franchise and you're putting a subtitle on it. Like, you got to have some faith in it. Because originally it was just Pirates of the Caribbean, and then I think a couple of months before release, they decided to rename it Pirates of the Caribbean Curse of the Black Pearl. So it's like, you've got to have some faith in a franchise in order to do that. I mean, well-founded. But again, this is coming from Disney, and I think it's the first time they've put that upper age thing on it. But I wonder if that kind of, again, appealed to a wider audience, because Disney are known for, let's be honest, kind of the younger age of the age spectrum.
Also, was it Johnny Depp and the fact that it's pirates? Pirates are cool.
Yeah, but pirates weren't cool in film at that point.
No.
Like the 95 is it Treasure on Treasure Planet? It pretty much tanked the entire thing.
Yeah, it was Cutthroat Island in the early 90s. Was the one that Rennie Harlan's film. Yeah, that was basically one of the biggest flops in history. That killed off the genre for a long time. Just as prior to Gladiator, which we discussed before, Sword and Sandals was dead as well.
Yes,
and then you have these unexpected films that come out of nowhere and revitalize the genre.
Yeah. But yeah, so I think the question of what is a kids film, what is a family film, what is a serious director, all these things are very much up in the air. And I just think it's interesting to consider when we think, oh, kids film, family film. It's like there's some distinctions, and everything kind of blurs together at a certain point. And I think you have to be a little bit kind of savvy when we think about these things. Well, in general life.
Kieran, a movie that's definitely not a kid or family movie is Friday the 13th. So why'd you pick that?
Hilariously enough, I didn't pick Friday the 13th. So for years after Sean Cunningham was at Abattoir and signed my Jason hockey mask, which I've shown several times. So is this the first time we're doing a film where one of us has met the director? No, because I did the raid. You did the raid. I've met the director. One of the first times where we've actually met the director. So Sean Cunningham was a jobbing producer a lot of the time. And he actually kind of went into film. You know how most people are like, oh, I have an artistic vision that I want to put on a film. No, Sean Cunningham went into film because he's like, how can I make a movie that will get me more money than it costs to make? That was his thing. And he started off essentially in the late 60s making, in the nicest way, sex education videos, where somebody would literally come on in a white. He described it as somebody coming on in a white coat and going, "Okay, guys, for the sake of kind of family health and all that thing, here's how you are good in bed better." There wasn't really a pornography thing yet, but this is kind of the nearest you'd get it playing adult theaters. And so his first film, is it The Art of Marriage, something like that? I think it is. That was essentially what it was. And he essentially didn't know how you got it distributed. There's a very good interview, a couple of very good interviews on YouTube, by the way. I watched one of them for this to refresh my memory of this. And he's essentially so the art of marriage, and essentially he kind of went to the phone book, went through a load of things, found a chain of cinemas, and somebody was like, yeah, I'll take it on. He didn't even know how the profits worked in the film industry. This is like 1970. You know, I don't know how old he is at that point. Not very. Let me just double check. How old is he at this point? He was born in 1941. Okay, so he's 29. He's like, I don't know how the film industry works. He's like, okay, it was 50-50. And he somehow, it was like corner of 42nd Street in New York, you know, the grimy sleaze section. And it managed to get showing for 27 weeks. And he was just like, how the hell does that work? You know? So then even when he is kind of, you know, sort of a younger age trying to get jobs to do, he'd got a hit on his hand. So he's working, doing kind of bits of editing, bits of producing. Somebody comes to him and go, do you want to, we've got a film, we want to play at kind of drive-ins. Do you want us to make this film? I think it was Whereas work on the second one. And in the offices of this building happened to be another very unknown kind of guy, Wes Craven. Don't know what happened to him either. Definitely didn't make a splash on the horror scene at all. And he got roped in. So Sean Cunningham produced Last House on the Left whilst Craven wrote and directed it. He then goes on to do a film called Together, similar kind of lines as Art of Marriage. And then sort of getting towards sort of 1977 to 78, he makes two family sports movies. One is called Here Come the Tigers, about baseball, and one is called Manny's Orphans, about soccer, which we'll be coming to now because that's the film I want to look at. And actually, he's kind of there going, I thought family films and kids movies was where I was going to be. You know, I can make these. I managed to get them out. I managed to get distributed. Money was coming in. It's not amazing, but money was coming in. I can do this. It's semi-competent at least, and it's paying the bills. Like this is kind of how these things work. I taught the entire time. Not all filmmakers and people who work there are the great artistic visionaries. Sometimes it is an industry. It is work. You have to pay the bills, you know. And the jobbing directors are what we should be looking for. But as he describes, when you're kind of making these films and kind of doing one, you're always looking for a next project, and you kind of bandy around names for films. And apparently, Manny's Orphans apparently wasn't the greatest title because somebody told him the name Manny is awful and nobody likes the idea of orphans. But
maybe you should tell that to Charles Dickens.
As I remember, I think if you're Dickens, you're allowed to do it. But as he's kind of getting this one through, he's kind of coming up with names for titles because he's like, look, you get a good title, it's good. And if you get an awful title, what does everyone suggest you do? Just change the title, you'll get more people in. And he was like, oh, if only I'd got a film, I don't know, called Friday the 13th. I could market that, you know? That's an easy thing to market. And so months later, it's now kind of a couple of months after Here Come the Tigers and Manny's Orphans are out. He kind of goes... I still remember that title, Friday the 13th. Maybe we could do something on that. Maybe we could, you know, it's like, I don't want to do like a horror film, Last House on the Left is in the distance, you know, Distant Past, but Friday the 13th, decent title. Maybe we could do something like that. And I'm like, how do we get the copyright on the title? Well, I don't know. Who has the copyright? You can't just Google it, you know, the Googling isn't a thing. So he goes and makes a giant poster of the words Friday the 13th crashing through glass, you know, the most terrifying film you've ever seen, and puts it in Variety. Variety magazine, obviously Variety still going, and I think we've probably quoted from Variety several times throughout the years and in print and here. And his idea was, look, if somebody's got the name of Friday the 13th, they'll let us know. And after about 3 weeks, nobody had called him up to go, you know, stop infringing on our copyright. But several distributors had come to say, we'd actually quite be interested in seeing this Friday the 13th just to show it. And he's like, well, damn, I guess I've got to make a film now. So he went and gets Victor Miller. He's kind of, you know, vaguely inspired by Halloween, but not direct copy of it, and goes and plans and makes Friday the 13th, which is what he's known for, and completely changes the face of horror and Halloween costumes forever. And so that's kind of how it comes along. And it's in kind of doing these children's sport films that he was like, ends up kind of redefining the slasher genre, making one of the biggest genre characters, the most recognizable kind of film characters of all time.
You know, throughout watching this, I was determined to find at least one point of crossover, between the two. But I struggled. I don't think I found anything. I don't know if you guys did.
There's a moment where one character is getting kind of snuck up on by another character, and it flicks to a POV. And there's some gangster characters in this film, so there's a bit like where a knife comes around as a very, they're sitting in the cinema, as a very slight kind of thriller element. But aside from that, it's not.
Well,
because again,
I'll make the argument he redefined the children's genre in the same way that he redefined the slasher, in that it became a gangster film. Alongside a how do I reach these kids melodrama.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't found that much information on how Manny's Orphans came to be. I'll be honest with you, I really haven't.
Deeply, I'm guessing that's how it came to be.
Yeah.
This is the kids' movie Scorsese should have made.
I lie. Of the film, apparently Victor Miller, who would eventually write Friday the 13th, and this is interesting as well because here you see, and I don't know if Here Comes the Tigers has him as well, but it was also co-written by Steve Miner and actually edited by Steve Miner. Steve Miner will work with him on Friday the 13th and direct part 2 and 3 at the very least as well. So realistically, this hockey mask isn't actually Sean Cunningham's; it's Steve Miner's, because it's him that comes up with the idea of reusing Jason, even though obviously Cunningham and Victor Miller have come up with Jason, but reusing him was Victor Miller's idea. I'm looking at Wikipedia. This is what it says on here. Of the film, writer Victor Miller said, Steve Miner came up with the idea for it, and I wrote the screenplay, and we did it. Another low-budget film, along with Here Come the Tigers, and shot it around Bridgeport, Connecticut. Cunningham said, we had this notion of a bunch of orphans in a halfway house. They put together a soccer team and the underdog wins. So we raised the money to do what became known as Manny's Orphans. It was a lot of fun to make, and again, I love working with the kids. I really thought it was going to be a breakthrough film for me. Cunningham also maintains that the reception was lukewarm, and although United Artists optioned it as a pilot for a TV series, they did not buy it. So I'm reading, that's Wikipedia, and there's some quotes in there, but that's the information on how they.
I mean, there are plenty of movies quite like this over the years, aren't they? It's quite classic, trope-wise and everything like that. Usually, they're out to save the orphanage or raise enough money, to do whatever. I quite that they has a little bit of edge to it, where it's basically you got to win this game, so we've bet a lot of money on it, and if you don't win, these gangsters are going to kill you. In the kids' film, it's quite funny.
It's like whatever that Marlon Brando movie is, but for kids.
You're gonna be more specific.
Yep, I do, but I'm not going to think of it. On the waterfront.
Strangely enough, the other film I was thinking of, I don't know if you saw kind of the turn of the millennium or the Scooby-Doo animated films that came out. Stuff like Zombie Island. There's one, Scooby-Doo and the Ghoul School. And I used to watch a load of them when I was a kid because they were always on TV. So like Witches, Ghosts, Zombie Island, Ghoul School was one of them. And it's Scooby, Shaggy, and Scrappy Doo are new teachers at a boarding school for the kids of famous Universal monsters. So like Dracula's daughter's there. It's a girls' school. So Dracula's daughter's there. The daughter of the mummy there. The daughter of Frankenstein's there. And right next to them is the rich boarding school for boys. Completely normal. And at one point they play it might be baseball, it might be tennis match between the two of them. And I think there's some shenanigans, and I'm fairly sure that the ghouls win. I can't even remember the rest of the plot. There is some other things that happens in there, but it just reminded me of that with the two and the new team.
I mean, of course, you've got to have the classic scene of, you're saying about the rich kids, interacting with the rich kids' school as well, haven't you? That kind of clash of cultures and class and everything, and all those kids. I mean, I don't advocate assaulting children, but those rich kids are so damn punchable. They were just horrible.
Working in a school, I can't say that any child needs to be punched. However, fictional depictions of children, those definitely deserved it. I mean, I'm watching it and I'm going, it's a film, and you can tell it's something that was kind of very quickly, we got it together, we can shoot it very quickly, and get it together and get it out there. And I don't know if it was like I don't know how you bring the two plots together, what the idea for that was, but it's a thing. I don't think I've seen it before.
Yeah.
And and again, it's like this isn't the greatest film of all time. Like it's nowhere near. It's competent enough, but it's also
It's serviceable, isn't it?
yeah.
And it gives you a couple of you giggle a couple of times, don't you? There are some okay jokes, I guess.
Well,
There
I
are
know it wasn't, but the copy that I watched looked like it was shot on VHS.
I mean,
Yeah.
I will be perfectly honest. Very possibly it came out on VHS. I don't even know if it's on DVD. Like, so
I doubt it.
shall we have a quick look?
To
Manny's
eBay.
Orphans DVD.
Look, I just know I'm gonna work on the gritty Scorsese style remake of it once we get off.
Once we take over the world.
This would probably bear up to remake. I mean, you always say there's nothing wrong with remakes, just remake bad movies.
Yeah, I mean, there
this
may
movie's
be a DVD version, but it's
hilarious.
probably ripped from the VHS, which
Yeah,
is probably
I think
ripped
so.
straight from the negative. Like, it's one of these films. Again, realistically, if the name Sean Cunningham wasn't attached, not a single person would have even sought this film out. We would not know it existed. And I think it's interesting that there are going to be hundreds of these films out there that were there, that did decent money, that paid the bills, got people through kind of tough times if they're not betting on races, horses, and paid the bills. And it's interesting to highlight these films because it's stuff like this that you realize where people got to. And I wonder how many more of these films are kind of interesting archaeological pieces that are just kind of left as reels or VHSs somewhere in an attic.
If you find the entry of this on Letterboxd, so across the whole of Letterboxd, there are 7 people who have bothered giving it a review. 7.
Yeah. How many of them mention the fact it's by Sean Cunningham? Or bring that kind of thing into it?
To be honest, not. Hang on, one
Sam,
there.
how many of them mention that Jim Baker looks like he's playing Mario?
Does, yeah. Yes. So 1 out of 7 of these reviews mention Sean Cunningham, and the others basically just do a plot synopsis.
Yeah.
Oh, and one who thinks is really clever says the Mighty Ducks bad news, $1 Million Karate Kid School Runnings, Miracle on Rudy's Sandblock.
Yep.
To be fair, it came out before a lot of those.
Yeah.
Yes, it is.
Is this a British kitchen sink film set in America?
I don't know.
It's not gritty enough for that, is it?
Okay.
It's not depressing
kinda
enough.
gritty.
Even with the orphans, dressed in their hand-me-down kind of clothes, and come from the wrong side of the tracks and everything. No, it's not real. Even with the gangsters threatening the
So there's
the nice moustache.
there's no kitchen sink film where it's a rugby match between like coal coughing orphans and the Eton School. That's not a thing.
There probably is somewhere.
And maybe you'd be surprised there aren't that many rugby films. I can think of
Like the one
2 or
that springs
3.
to mind is Invictus, and that's about it.
Yeah.
Probably some documentaries.
There was the the gritty one from the 60s with a young Richard Harris. I've drawn a blank on the name now.
Yeah.
There's not that many that are that big. Again, it's like with a lot of sports. We talked about this in our sports episode ages ago. It's quite hard to make a lot of sports cinematic.
Yeah.
And this doesn't make football any worse than much high budget films. To be honest, it's a really hard sport to make cinematic. I think without resorting to like a lot of slow mo and stuff. Really,
which he only does right at the end.
Yeah.
For the dramatic moment, I will give it the fact that there is there's a couple of scenes of tension. There's specifically a safe scene, which I think at the very least is at least gone. Let's try and add some suspense and some thrills to this with some cross cutting and stuff like that, and keeping it quiet. And there's also the whole thing of one of the characters, because it's an all boys school, is actually the sister of one of the other characters in disguise, and they have a physical coming up the next day. So for about 5-10 minutes, there is a kind of, they're all kind of hatching out a plan in order to try, and then it's all got to go off perfectly. It's there's a couple of
And
mini
it relies
heists
on racism.
Yeah, oh yeah, that's not great. That didn't age well.
I did laugh at that just because the doc's expression, basically saying, "Yeah, fair enough. I probably am racist."
Yeah. It's like, we know that this is a thing, and it's not going to age well, but you kind of laugh at it because the doctor kind of goes along with it. And goes,
and of course, with any girl masquerading as boy story, it's going to find out at some point, and the way they do that, it's. They're all being kind of reprimanded, by the priest, runs the orphanage, and she's nowhere to be found. She's upstairs having a shower, so of course she's marching upstairs, and they're gonna burst in on her, and all's gonna be revealed. And
I mean, it's service. Yeah, go ahead.
No, sorry, no, go on.
Yeah, it's serviceable. It's not the greatest film in the world. There are some inklings there with Cunningham's direction here. Again, the kind of the more thrillery elements. I mean, the POV again of the stalking towards it. This is something obviously that Halloween were kind of majorly popularized, but had been seen a couple of times before, and definitely, I mean, would come in. It's like one or two shots of that. Friday the 13th is pretty much based on that. Realistically, that's the entire thing of Friday the 13th. So there are elements that you will see going forward. But you do have to remember, again, he'd made another film this year, another sports film, with, as far as I can work out, the same kind of guys. So this was we need a project. Here's an idea. Okay, whack something together. Okay, let's shoot this thing. Let's get it done. Let's get it edited. Let's get it out.
So there's actually a movie similar to this from the 90s that stars an NFL player named Reggie White, and it's a Christian movie, and he's just a good upstanding guy, and Mr. Miyagi is the principal of the school. And
obviously.
It's him just being a paragon of virtue while there are like Asian gangsters in town trying to like stop him for some reason. So I do like that this movie at least has Manny just being the worst and just constantly calling his bookie, trying to place bets on the Cowboys in the 70s, which I mean, good way to make money, but he's terrible at sports betting. Like,
I mean,
they tell him you owe a guy $2,000. And that's going to get him murdered. $2,000.
Yeah, I mean, Manny's an interesting character to begin with because he's got a lot of good qualities. He obviously, for the purpose of the thing, is good with the kids. He's very caring of that. He has an addiction. Like, so you're like, oh, is he a good character? Is he a bad character? I think he's...
Is he a good soccer coach?
Yeah, I think he's well-meaning, even if he has quite major flaws.
Yeah. But in this particular area, if it was like just a few years further on, or maybe if they had a bit more money to pay, you could see someone like John Candy playing this role, couldn't you? It's that very kind of affable, kind of lovable loser kind of.
Who's it you reckoned would play him in a remake?
Oh yeah. In the remake, he'd be Paul Giamatti, definitely.
Yeah. Who would be Mr. C, the big gangster? Do we think?
Well, I can get distracted by how similar they look. Both big guys with these whacking great moustaches.
70s moustaches,
and terrible taste in suits.
Terrible taste in suits. The terrible suits are probably the only ones they could afford. It's like, we've got a suit. It works. Wear it.
Yeah.
It's like, well,
we just stole this off another set. Put it on.
Yeah, we got it out of the coffin.
I'm amazed. I'm amazed they had the money to outfit 2 teams of kids in proper like football kits.
There's probably a thing where if we watch it back, you don't actually see them all at the same time, so they just rotate the kits. We've got half the kits. Yeah. Very good editing skills from Steve Miner there,
Yeah, and I think it points out in our chat earlier on is how convenient is it that there's the perfect number of orphans at this orphanage to fill out a football team.
Well, and also the girl Like they say, well, if you want to play this game, you got to let her play. The Supreme Court said it. And I'm like, wow, I didn't know 1978 America, the Supreme Court said girls have to be allowed to play in soccer. I don't know.
Interestingly enough, I'm just checking that because the music was done by Henry Manfredini. So this was his third film. The first one is a film called Through the Looking Glass, which I haven't seen somehow. And then his second and third were Here Come the Tigers and Manny's Orphans. But it looks like he'd literally do pretty much all of Cunningham's movies. He does all of the Friday the 13th movie. He does Wes Craven's Swamp Thing in 82. The Children, I think I've seen is interesting. He's mainly a horror guy, but he also does House and House 2, which obviously Cunningham produced, didn't direct, he produced them. He does Slaughter High as well, like Deep Star 6, which Cunningham also did. House 4. He doesn't do House 3, he does House 4. And Wishmaster, again, Wes Craven produced as well. So obviously very close to those two.
How did the House franchise survive without his score in that third film?
I don't know, but it obviously did so badly they brought him back for the fourth one. Amore is there as well. So again, it's interesting to see that a very kind of, these people kind of worked with them, and there's obviously sort of a couple.
You know the drill. I need a quick score.
Yeah. Well, I mean, come on, like the same people called on Ennio Morricone for things. So when Steven Spielberg needs a score and calls on John Williams, it's a wonderful collaboration. But when Sean Cunningham calls on his old mate Manfredini to do something, it's just, you're the only one I know, and I need somebody to do it quick. How dare you? Like, it's disgraceful behavior. It's just kind of film classism at its worst. Just disgusting comment from you, Jacob. I'm very ashamed.
I watched Manny's Orphans. This is not art.
No, but it obviously paid the bills. And it's an interesting artifact, if only in the life and times of how Friday the 13th got made as a major horror institution. Again, after Friday the 13th,
AKA made Cunningham a lot of money.
Or enough money. Again, Friday the 13th he then does. He goes Strangers Watching, Spring Break, New Kids, House 2. Deep Star 6 is an interesting one, like underwater base under siege. Low budget alien underwater kind of thing. Writes more stuff than he does. XCU I had to see extreme close up. Michael Ferguson, J. Michael Ferguson, not really interested in it. I still have to see Terminal Invasion, which is Bruce Campbell and aliens in an airport, which just sounds like the greatest movie of all time.
Die Hard with aliens in an airport.
Shush. Trapped Ashes is a section, an anthology. So he did a section in that. Got Ken Russell's done a section. Joe Dante did a section. The last thing he did, which was one of the things he showed when he was at Abattoir, was a kind of 50-minute mini documentary called The Nurse with the Purple Hair, about somebody that was working in hospice, end of life kind of care and hospice, and it's I think he'd had somebody go through that and had met this person there, and decided to do like a mini documentary on hospice, but focus it around this individual. I can't remember too much about it, although I have obviously seen it. And when he was doing the signings and stuff, he was kind of give as much as you can, because for the foreseeable future, all the money is going to this hospice rather than to him, which is a really interesting thing, because a lot of celebrities now, if you have kind of paid for signings and stuff, I mean, I paid for my photos and signings from Carolyn Monroe and Madeline Smith when I met them last year. This is just the way it's done, but he's like, no, as much as you can, it's all going to this hospice. So it's obvious that he stayed in horror, but it seems like a lot of the reason he stayed in horror, he's obviously good at it and liked it, but again, he was saying that's not where I thought it was going to end up. I thought it would be in children's films and family films. This is just where I ended up because I was good in it, which is paralleling almost Wes Craven. Because famously, Wes Craven did not want to do horror movies. He wanted to do romance movies, which is why he did Vampire in Brooklyn and the other one, which nobody remembers. And it's why in Scream 3, Roman Bridger, the director character, also Ghostface. Just saying, spoilers. But he's there the entire time going, I just want to get this over with so I can go back to doing romances. That's what I actually want to do. Because literally just Kevin was like, oh, let's just make him Wes Craven. That'll do. So I find it interesting that actually the kind of stuff he's known for is not where he thought he would end up. And he becomes kind of the serious genre kind of established kind of star director or cult director after he does the children's films, rather than kind of the others, as we'll see, that kind of dip into to children's films. So it's an interesting artifact, if a serviceable enough film.
Yeah.
And now to a film which is going to take us half an hour to actually describe.
I'll try and keep it brief.
Yeah, I'm glad Manny's Orphans took the time to like explain the plot to me every couple of scenes.
Yeah. Oh, look, there's kids in an orphanage again.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, to remind everyone what's at stake. Yeah. So the Great Yokai War is a 2005 film from Takashi Miike, who is obviously best known for very, very violent and sadistic films, such as Audition and a few others.
Ichi the Killer, maybe.
Yeah, I think Ichi the Killer was his most controversial one at that point, wasn't it? I mean, he's a force of the Dead or Alive trilogy, the Black Society trilogy, One Missed Call, 13 Assassins, Blade of the Immortal, stuff like that. So it's lots of samurai movies, lots of gangster movies, and a bit of horror thrown in as well. He's a force of nature. He's only been active in filmmaking since 1991, and he's made over 100 features. And
I think
it's close to 200 if you include all the TV movies and everything else he's done.
I remember Blade of the Immortal when it was coming out. It was billed as Takashi Miike's 100th film. And that was like kind of the which is I haven't seen it, but it's the reason I know what it's called, because everything was like, oh, it's his 100th film that he's doing. It's like he's only been working for like not even for 3 decades at that point. Like there are some years where he was pumping out like 4 or 5 movies a year for a good like 5-year span. It was insane.
Yeah. So despite been known for kind of this really kind of violent kind of genre kind of fare, he's also got a bit of a sideline. I mean, he's very versatile. He's got a bit of a sideline in kids and family films as well, which is this is one of the more prominent examples of that. I think he's got a series. I'm trying to focus for it. There's a series of sort of like a high school like teen drama series that he's involved with. I can't remember what it's called now. But yeah, he's very versatile. So it probably shouldn't be surprised that he did something like this at some point in his career. But
the Mole song, I think you're thinking of.
Yeah.
And he also did an Ace Attorney movie as well. Ninja Kids,
Yeah. But at this point in his career, so he's done Itchy the Killer. He's done Audition. He's done the Dead. I think it's done all of the Dead or Alive at this point. I think he has done. But let's just go from that kind of thing to this, which is, I describe it almost like a live action Studio Ghibli film. Really, it's it's inspired by Shigeru Mizuki's manga Hakabara Kitaro, which is often credited with kind of repopularizing creatures from Japanese folklore that was all fallen out of fashion over time. So kind of this ongoing comic series essentially uses these creatures and kind of gives them like distinct designs and makes them characters like throughout this like quite labyrinthine kind of ongoing story. It shares a name with a film from '68. Also called The Great Yokai War, but doesn't really have much to do with this. That one's sort of like a period set film, whereas this is contemporary, and that's more serious as well. It's sort of like a classic kind of film you see in like the Godzilla kind of era, of kind of Japanese filmmaking essentially. So we follow a timid boy called Tadashi, who's chosen to be the Kirin Rider as her folk festival. It's like the ceremonial kind of position, basically. He wins a tea towel and like some beans to take home to his family, but not much else. But by chance, he gets swept off on this adventure with a group of friendly yokai spirits. They've got to team up to stop a demon from destroying the world, essentially. That's very basic, kind of rush through kind of the key points. But there's lots of tangents within that, lots of characters, lots of bizarre visuals and goings on, and yeah, it's certainly a thing. It's got Chiaki Kuriyama from Battle Royale and Kill Bill as one of the villains. She's got like this distinct kind of white beehive hairdo and uses a whip, and she seems to take great pleasure out of abusing small fantasy forest animals. So not a nice lady. There's the evil demons. They're sort of like so all the yokai, basically all the traditional like Japanese folklore spirits. They're all the good guys, basically. They're all a lot of them bizarre looking and got very strange kind of folklore and traditions attached to them. And all the bad guys are essentially like demons that artificially created this. The main bad guy basically is like a combination of like machine parts and stuff. They're like steampunk transformers, basically. So I think it's something about like the modern day versus Japanese traditions, and the bad guy basically wants to get to Tokyo. Bad guy wants to get to Tokyo and feed off all the resentment that you get from a big modern city, essentially.
So wait, what does it represent when it's in a sword fight then?
It represents a sword fight.
Yeah, sword fights are just cool. That's all there is. All there is to this. So you got a big cast of yokai. So yeah, any culture around the world, obviously you have all these folklore and legends, like spirits and hobgoblins and what have you. But Japanese culture, I think, is a particularly thick with that kind of aspect to them. I mean, especially when it's such a spiritual site, when there's certain things to represent. How you're interacting with the world and what you need to get, live a fruitful kind of spiritual life and everything like that. So pretty much all the creatures in this, they're kind of based on actual things from Japanese folklore. Some of the real bizarre. So you have Sunex Suri, which is a little chipmunk-looking one who our leader befriends. And his name literally translates to rubs against the lower legs. And apparently you see these when you're walking home late at night on the road, and they'll run across your path and go straight for your thighs or your legs, and just want to brush past you for some reason. You got the kappa, which is my favorite of the Japanese spirits, because this is what I actually knew about before this, because I've seen him in some other fantasy movies. I think it makes appearance in an animated Hellboy movie, I seem to remember.
I think
essentially
Kappa
it's like an amphibious
a
war.
very old Yu-Gi-Oh card as well, which is how I first heard.
Yeah. So it's basically it's a Japanese like water spirits, it looks like a Golduck. Yeah. It's like an amphibious Japanese water spirit with like a dish of water in its head. And God folklore, if you get to spill its water, then it loses all of its strength and it can be captured. I think there's a point like towards the end of the big battle in this where he kind of, oh no, my ball's cracked, and he can't do it after that. He's a cool like creature, but I like the makeup on him, but he's a very annoying performer. Okay, I'll say that.
I'll agree with that.
It was nice that the guy played him, Abe Sadeo. Apparently, he kept up the illusion between takes because the kid who played Tadashi was convinced he was like a real kind of creature, between takes, So he just stayed in character just for the kid's sake. So yes, I will be this amphibious creature for the duration of this shoot, just to keep the kid happy. Just kind of nice. So it's got this. You got like a water princess in this. I couldn't actually find what she's based on specifically than Japanese folklore, but I'm sure there's various like legends. She's almost like a mermaid, really, isn't she? She's like an aquatic kind of princess, comes to the surface, always shining. I was thinking, oh God, it must be spraying her down in between takes constantly for this. And she's kind of had an interaction with another guy. This this I think he's a journalist, isn't he? Who's gone over to that town to a story on yokai, and he meets up with Tadashi by chance, and he tells a story about, oh yes, I was rescued from drowning when I was a child, by this strange woman. I wish I could see her again, and this princess that we meet again. You got Shoujo, who's the red-faced man. So he's a red-faced alcoholic sea spirits. He's basically wearing like a no kind of opera costume essentially. And he's the first one to interact with Tadashi at the festival, but then he's pretending to be like just a guy in like a traditional costume. But then the matron says, "Oh, yeah, I don't need makeup now. This is my actual face. This is my real red face." You see a Rokuro Kubi, I think is how you say it. Again, I know about this one before because it's appeared in like horror films and stuff before. She's the stretchy necks lady. So you'll wander into someone's house, you'll see this beautiful woman in a kimono, and then she'll essentially they're like almost like banshees, I suppose. They're meant to or sirens, I suppose more appropriate. And then tempt you into their dwellings and trick you. And then when you least expect them, they'll reveal themselves, and a neck will start to elongate
and it's
scare you off essentially.
Gosh, that's maybe the first like extensive CGI instance that I can think of in this movie.
Yeah.
Of many.
And but it's interesting the effects they do use, because it is a quite a combination of different kinds of effects. The CG isn't great in it, admittedly, but they're all kind of interesting enough effects to still look quite striking. And then you combine it with like your puppets and animatronics and just guys in costumes. So it's quite interesting. You get a Kasu Obake, which is the umbrella with a cyclops eye and a tongue. And they're apparently signs that your house is haunted. Basically, you'll come home to your house, so you won't notice anything different, but then you'll notice your umbrella's moved from your hat stand, and all of a sudden, oh, it's alive! It's coming after me. You have this guy seems throwaway at first, but he's quite crucial as the plot goes on. So you have Azu Karai, which is a mischievous old man who's obsessed with gathering his red beans in a basket. And essentially, it's his actions towards the end that basically defeats the bad guy kind of by chance, which is just kind of interesting. And throwaway, just like so you have two big kind of scenes with like all the creature effects. So you have one where they're all gathering together. So they've got to put a team together, to fight back against the demons. So they gather at this house, and they're all just they're waiting for them. They go for a door, and they're all just sitting there, doing their thing. A few of them get lines of dialogue. A few of them do what they're famous for doing in folklore. You have the Yukiona, just the snow woman, who's kind of just sitting outside the back doors, just looking all ominous. Apparently, she's a bit like Malarona, because she's like she's assigned to protect your children on cold nights, basically. If you say, the winds are drawing in, I better get the kids safety, or else they might meet a tragic end. Yes, there's kind of the creatures, and there's creatures that like like your house walls that can go walk away. You've got guys with bigger weird shaped heads. You've got all kinds of kind of creatures in this. Essentially, he's just Takashi Miike has just crammed as many kind of creatures and kind of signs from folklore that the general Japanese audience would kind of recognize as possible into this kind of movie, and just and it's kind of fascinating to see. And then kind of you get like a big battle towards the end where they're all gathering around the bad guys flying creature fortress thing, which is a bit like something from Ghibli again. Although because it kind of looks like a turtle, you have one bystander saying, "Oh, don't worry, it's only Gamera," which is the other big kaiju. It's not Godzilla. So yeah. It's quite overwhelming just as the sheer amount of stuff kind of thrown at it. And after a while, basically after the initial setup, boy on adventure, gets his magic sword, gets some weird friends to spend some time with.
Which
Nice
is
to
a
go fight the
Hobbit
bad
sword,
guy.
by the way.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. After all that, essentially, you can just kind of go with it, and he sounds like, I don't understand why that's happened or what's causing that, but just go with it. Just go with the chaos. It's and
one thing I will say, I've looked up the lead actor who plays the kid Tadashi, Ryunosuke Ryunosuke Kamiki. I'm looking up some of the other things he's done, and put it this way, both of you have seen him very prominently and not realized it. I will read some out. So he, at the very least, was voicing the baby in Spirited Away. He voiced Markle in Howl's Moving Castle.
Oh yeah.
He dubbed over the main guy in Parasite, the son. I can't remember for the Japanese dub.
Japanese release,
Hilariously enough, I actually used him in an essay that I did at university because it's in As the God's Will, another Miike film. He is also the main guy, Shikishima, in Godzilla -1.
Okay.
To be honest, I vaguely did know that because I remember researching like who we'd kind of worked with before back when I was reviewing that, and okay.
I'm just looking through it going,
Yeah.
oh my god, like,
yeah,
this is where it's come from.
cool.
And this is his 3rd year of acting. He'd done a couple of things before it, kind of live action. Apparently, he overcame his fear of swimming in this. In 2022, he was voted as the most powerful actor in Japan. He's 32 years old.
Wow.
So he's doing quite a bit.
Well, I suppose if you're in Godzilla -1, that gives you a fair bit of crap, doesn't it?
Yeah. It just made me realize how lame American kids movies similar to this are. Where this is a bunch of really sweet looking demons and actually shocking imagery, and trying to think of what's a movie with I don't know.
I mean, 10, 15 minutes into this, I was doing a question: is this kids movie or not? Because you see, just in the back of the barn, just finding that weird kind of fetus creature thing.
Yeah, some blood splatters and everything.
Yeah. And when kids are on the bus, and those like demons are crawling around it, basically.
And the face coming down, I'm thinking very like Shutter kind of thing. This is the age of that kind of stuff. And I mean, Miike's making these movies. He's making One Missed Call.
I mean, essentially, he dives back like the sadistic violence, but still there's like fantasy violence in this, isn't there? And a creature or a demon can bleed, it's weird bloods. I mean, like the chinchilla-looking things for some reason leak like yellow fluids.
And I mean,
like childish jokes in this, like the Sonic Zuri, just escaping from its attacker by pissing on him, just
like the people in Asian nations, they will go for toilet humor, and for some reason it's pulled off slightly better than in the West. Not much, but it's somehow used for a function and rather than just a crude joke. Somehow, it's still crude.
I need to have a bit of blood at the end, when Chiaki Kuriyama's character is killed off by the main bad guy. I mean, she's his devoted servant. She's deeply in love with him as well, and he basically says, I can't be in love now. You'll just get in the way, and basically runs her through. You get a bit of actual violence towards a human-looking kind of character in that. So. But generally, he's dialed it right back. He's changed the tone massively to his normal fare. But other than that, he's still really interested in doing things. his way, combining different kind of effects and stuff. I mean, he did the same thing in the Dead or Alive films that start out as just these traditional violent gangster movies, but then just go completely off the wall, madness, psychedelia towards the end.
Yeah,
Where they've all got like superpowers and they're fighting like they're in Dragon Ball Z.
And I mean, you know, I'm going to mention Yakuza Apocalypse. I think is one of my benchmarks on just absolute randomness. It's like, okay, let's have a Yakuza boss, but he's now also a vampire, and we're going to have more vampire wars. And there's also like weird Kappa, and there's also a guy in a frog suit who's actually the most powerful ultra demon beast from another dimension. That the end thing is going to be him as a mad vampire with wings rising up to fight the end of all dimensions. As a guy in a frog suit punching people. Like it's just like, and for some reason Johan Rioan's in it as well, for no reason that I can think other than why not. It's just like Mike has an ability, like for some things he'll dial it down, and he can do very simplistic. I mean, a lot of Audition, it's the simplicity that does it, and the simplicity of the shots, which, like, I mean, it's very, very simple. An awful lot of the staging of Audition is incredibly simple, just locked down, kind of thing, which is when you get that kind of almost psychedelic thing, sort of 2/3 of the way in, and everything starts to unravel. He changes it up, and he can do that. But for some things, he's just like, throw more at it. I remember, I think my review of Bullet Train, with the Brad Pitt one, where I think even in my review again for TFM, I was saying like, everyone's going, oh my God, this is absolutely insane. And I go, but only within the limits of seemingly what Hollywood would allow. Like if Takeshi Miike had got hold of Bullet Train, like this would have been the whole thing would have been the first 2/3 of the movie, and it would have found somewhere weird to go for the last third and gone, sod it, let's fly with it. If nothing else, that's what I do admire about Miike. When you just give him free reign, he just goes, does this make sense? No. Is it weird? Yes. Is it mad? Yes. Let's do it. Because why not?
Yeah. I mean, there are some talk about what you couldn't do in Hollywood. I mean, even if this was like a kids movie, so think of an equivalent thing. Think of something like I was thinking of because of the creature effects in this and puppets and things. I was thinking of something like Labyrinth, but you never have like a scene where like a 10-year-old boy is getting licks on the face by a stretchy necks lady, So, this film's kind of every character's weird obsession with the princess's wet thighs. There's lots of shots of people just rubbing her thighs for some reason. Is it just she's all slimy like a fish or something. I don't know what they're getting up there. It's just a weird lingering shot of that, which I noticed a few times.
I remember that now, but I do think that if any Anglosphere movie comes close to that, it is Labyrinth and the noticeable bulge.
Yes.
I was thinking that I also had a kind of weird sort of, as we did it a while ago, Return to Oz as well.
Yeah.
Very dark children's film,
Yeah, and that had like weird things going on with heads and limbs and stuff, didn't it? It's just
these films where they're like, how was this ever a children's film? This scarred my childhood. This is one of the ones that would go into there, but I think it's just kind of a wash of images and stuff like that, so even kids wouldn't realize what's going on or why, because it's just stuff going on, and it's like, oh my God, this is weird but fun.
That's where the language of cinema comes in. We can tell by like body language and stuff what's going on. How does this character feel? We can see it in the color change and the framing shifts.
I think even with that, a lot of the time, you don't know what's happening or why. It's just like, okay, there's a load of soldiers. We're meant to root for the kid. Okay.
Yeah, I think it's one of Takashi Miike's funniest films. But I'm not sure whether a lot of those most of those laughs are kind of intentional or not. It's just you're just almost just bowled over just by the kind of bizarreness of it. But generally good jokes. Like they go to confront the bad guy, and they've been carried in these like baskets by crows, I think, or some kind of bird. And it's not good. And this is taking too long. It's not going fast enough. Oh, what else should we do? Cut to them hanging on to like a jumbo jet wing. Just
massive smash cut, literally done. Like it's there are moments where the editing is beautiful in this.
Yeah, and they felt the need to kind of slap on a big like warning sticker. Don't try this at home,
Yeah.
kids.
Like this is there's a really nice editing. There's a bit where he goes into the forest for the first time and he sees
Yeah.
or hears something, and it does almost like a kind of zoom into his face, but it's kind of multiple kind of jarring cuts. So the
Yeah.
editing slightly off. Almost, I for some reason kind of put that with French expression, French New Wave, even though it's not,
Yeah.
but like distorting the time of actually going up closer. So
Yeah.
there is still his horror stuff in there, but it is meant to
Yeah.
be a fam.
Yeah. I mean, you think of something like Coraline, which I think a lot of people say is like a gateway horror, and it's in terms of the ideas and everything. Some of the imagery is terrifying, but it's not going to like scar you too much. But like in this, simple things like the classic, see someone in the forest and they turn around, they've got no face, which again is like a Japanese folklore thing, but also it's a recognizable thing to us Westerners as well. It's a horror, like a horror mystery trope, isn't it? It's like something from Tales of the Unexpected or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, I was thinking of Coraline earlier as well because unfortunately, I'm not going to have to go to the movie. I'm going to have to go to game and but so I read this when he wasn't outed as,
what he is.
Yeah, let's go with that. But apparently, when it was released, kind of people were essentially the reviewers were going essentially, this is a children's book for horror. This is a horror story for children, and then they would go, that's not necessarily a bad thing. It's like it doesn't just because it's got like something has like horror elements doesn't mean you immediately have to shut it off. Because I mean, let's be honest. There are moments of Scooby-Doo, the cartoons, which are absolutely terrifying and not be shown to children. Again, as we said, Finding Nemo. The opening of that is nightmare fuel. I remember very distinctly being about 4 years old. The first film I ever saw in the cinema was Monsters, Inc. So I was about four and a half. I remember very distinctly being a four and a half, 5-year-old and having a nightmare that I think Boo is the kid, like falls off one of the where all the doors are going and falls into the abyss and waking up and crying about it, like because I was like 5. It was like one of the first nightmares I can remember. I can remember it very distinctly. In my old house, sat on the stairs crying about it, with my parents downstairs going, this is what I saw. Certain kids films have to have that, and to be honest, it's a good thing. Because again, this is a rite of passage that you go through, and sometimes you need the darker elements in order to do that. This takes it to a whole new level, but
and this has got like scares and craziness and
Mm-hmm.
action and loads of interesting creatures, but it's got heart to it. And I think the kind of early scenes with Tadashi and his granddad, who's got dementia, keeps forgetting his name, getting mixed up, and his. He calls his sister. So I think his parents are separated, haven't they? So I think his sister lives with his dad, and he lives with his mum and his granddad. And he calls it and talks about like, oh yeah, granddad forgot my name again today. Called me Akira, and she says, oh yeah, well I expect he won't remember me at all then. And stuff like that. Just it's quite kind of heartbreaking, really. And then, like towards the end, his little furry friend, is basically kidnapped, imprisoned, and turned into like this monster. Dropped into this. Everything gets dropped into like this industrial vat and gets mixed with mechanical parts and comes out all wrong and demonic. And he's got to fight, his former friend, and he essentially kills him, but in the final moments you have this little squeak, hear his little animal voice, and later on, this is the most heartbreaking thing for me actually, because right at the end, after they've saved the world and everything, it cuts to like 20 years later, where he's like just an adult with a job, in his suit, and cycling to work, and there's little creature comes back from the spirit of the little creature comes back from him, but he can't see him anymore because he's he's an adult. He's left behind those childish things.
So there's definitely a very Peter Pan, Neverland kind of feel to that. Yeah. I mean, that's another thing. Just saying, Captain Hook as a villain in Peter Pan, like just should not be done. Like just a thing. Anyway.
Yeah. So I mentioned that this was inspired by Shigeru Mizuki, who's a manga writer, who repopularized these kind of things, brought back into popular culture in Japan in the 70s, I think. And he was still around, when this has been made, and they actually gave him a cameo. He's the lead yokai at the end, the big face, behind the curtain, basically. So they brought him in to, shoot that cameo and to impart like the final lesson of the film, because they say the other yokai say, "Oh, we won the war," and he's like, "Are you sure?" Basically saying it's like it's always going to be going on. We're never going to get rid of evil completely. And he kind of advised Takashi Miike and his team, on kind of how to portray these creatures, and a lot of their designs within this, they're not necessarily kind of what they are and what they represent is based on folklore, but how they look, a lot of it's based on his works, based on his drawings and how he designed them. So it's a nice little tribute to him. They gave him a cameo and let him kind of advise, and just say how best to use these in the story, and kind of what kind of powers these all have, what their strengths and weaknesses, and what's interesting about them. Because he's considered, he's a comic artist, but he's considered like a folklore expert now, because he brought so much of this back inside the general, more mainstream culture in Japan. So I find that quite interesting.
So it's like Tolkien, but for Japan.
Yeah, well, for kind of
sort of
folklore comics guy in Japan. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe you compare him more to someone like Alan Moore. Maybe he's very well read and literate, and arguably kickstarts a whole new phase of comics. When he started. So yeah, this is a really interesting one. I'm not sure if I say outright that it's like a great movie or anything, but it's an entertaining one. There's so much there, and even if you're kind of generally bewildered by it, there'll be something in it, I think, that you'll find interesting. And it's good to see like another string to Miike's kind of bow. And just I'm kind of intrigued to see what else he's done, outside of his normal wheelhouse over the years. Kind of quite want to see his Ace Attorney film now, and and they did do a sequel to this a few years later, which he came back for, but that's less easy to see in this country. I think luckily this one was available to purchase on streaming, but I've not found a way to see the sequel yet. I don't know how it was. I think this did pretty well, I think, critically and box office wise. So it cost what 1.3 billion yen and made 2 billion yen. So I think it did decent business. And the sequel came out when that came out 2021. It's quite a while after this. But it's interesting. He cared enough to come back to it and continue the story. And I presume it's just a direct follow-on from this. That looking at it more closely.
And I'm fairly sure that Ryonosuke, who plays Tadashi, reprises his role in the sequel as well.
Yeah, I'm sure you're right.
No, he in Great Yokai War Guardians, he's Kato, so he's a different character. He's the antagonist. Okay, so he returns in it, but I think he plays a different. I don't know. We haven't seen it yet. But he is in it. He's probably too big to get to come back as the same character, but interesting.
Yeah. But it's one of these movies that kind of chucks so much at you, It's like, like for the kind of as it gets towards the end, just how they actually defeat the bad guy. I kind of had to rewind it because I didn't really understand what was happened at first. Because like the bad guy's like summoning this, big evil force basically from beneath the earth, and then he wants to combine with it and attain like more power. And he's about to go into the device that will kind of make them one, make them one big evil force. And then the guy with the beans, he's dropped all his beans. He's been gathering them all up back into his basket, and then he loses one that falls into like the device, and that bean is enough to throw everything off, and everything blows up. And power
of plot convenience.
Yeah. And the bad guy's not really there. He comes back in like, it's not post-credit scene, but like just before the credits, he turns up and he's still around. He's got glowing red eyes now. So and you can tell he's a bad guy because he's all in black and he's wearing one black glove.
And he's got red evil eyes. Yeah.
Yeah.
We should also mention very, very quickly that we had actually done a Miike film before. We did Sukiyaki Western Django way back when. So if you want to go and revisit that, please do.
Which is a Miike film I haven't actually seen. I've seen 12, 13 of his films over time. I've never seen that one, so I have to get to it.
It's a trip.
Yeah, as all this stuff is.
Yes.
Yeah.
So from that to something not much more
steampunk.
Car. Yeah, well, yes. Yeah, I don't know. Just it's this next one's still crazy in its way, but in concept, but nowhere near as mad as Yokai.
Well, tonally, I think Hugo is the most like kids film of any of these. It's focused kind of purely on childlike wonder and the warmer side of nostalgia and looking at and thinking about childhood and telling stories that can be marketed more to kids than to adults or perhaps equally. But I mean, compared to these other two, this is just you can't even say anything bad happens. Jude Law dies and oh well. Life goes on. But yeah,
that's Jude Law, it doesn't.
No, not for Jude Law. This Hugo, and Martin Scorsese was not the original director. No, it was supposed to be the guy that did Ice Age, whose name I heard a second ago.
I thought this was Scorsese's project from the start.
Nope, no. Chris Wedge was the initial director for hire for the group that purchased the rights to the book. And he left at some point, and Martin Scorsese signed on in like 2010. And so this was an insane turnaround for Scorsese to like, because around this time he's also making Shutter Island. So
and this was also filmed 3D, wasn't it?
Yeah, which that's his idea to sort of like, we're gonna make it revolutionary, just like Millier. So this is, I guess, an early version of of the de-aging. He's leaning into the great leap forward technologically.
Yeah,
not the great leap forward. But this is. It's a movie that should have been Scorsese's the whole time because it's about loving really old movies and film history.
Which is why I thought it was...
Yeah, it's a way to get kids into, well, what were movies like before there was sound? Well, you could just show them this fancy movie that doesn't look like it wasn't filmed before the year 2020, which is what... kids can only watch things that are new and look good. I'd forgotten that this was not animated. I was picturing Polar Express type animation, but no, it's live action. I don't know when the last time I watched this was, but
some of these CG set extensions look pretty animated.
Yeah. Here's the weird thing. I mean, before we go into the plot, I think that actually works for this in a strange way. Because it is a childlike whimsy, it is hyper stylized to hell. It is, let's be honest, most of this film it's a vibe with a plot line.
Yeah.
And it's an aesthetic. I haven't seen this film in, give or take a couple of weeks, a decade, because I watched it on my very first undergrad film module, and it was like the fourth film we watched, so sort of end of October, so about a month and a half, 2 months away from it literally being a decade. And we saw this, and I think like you, Sam, as well, I didn't know who Georges Méliès was when I first saw this. saw
Yep.
this and how they
Didn't
planned.
know, didn't know, yeah, didn't know it was a real dude even when they said the name, and thought, oh, and it's
Yeah.
like, oh, he used to be a filmmaker. It's like, okay, cool character, interesting filmmaker. I wonder who inspired that. Oh, he was a real guy, and
Yeah,
reading about it
but
afterwards.
the way our module works, they'd put this on the 1 week, and the week after we did Méliès and A Trip to the Moon, and I think we actually did the version that was the restoration was overseen by Scorsese around the same time, and so that's how they managed to bring it in. So I hadn't seen it since then, but I'm watching this and I'm just going, I forgot how good this film is. Like it genuinely is not just like the vibe and the stacked cast. Like
Yeah.
it is genuinely a very good film. Like
Yeah.
I checked my letterbox because I had logged it years ago from memory, and I think I'd put it on like 7 stars. I'm just like, no, straight 10. Like
Well, no,
straight.
I think it shows the value of simplicity and just letting someone who's an expert at their craft take something that essentially, it is an aesthetic. It's very cartoonish. It's isolated in a well-known spot in Paris. Every time they walk outside, it's like, oh, look, the Eiffel Tower is right there. Like it's incredibly
You have Sacha Baron Cohen playing like a sitcom character, or it looks like he should be in like a Paddington film or something.
Yeah.
and his main interest is robbing orphans of their joy of being street urchins.
Yeah.
And that's where like the main danger is in the film. So, Asa Butterfield, is that how you say his name? I don't know.
Asa. Asa.
Yeah, I just remember he was in the running for Spider-Man at one point. But he plays a kid who lives in a train station. We're running the clocks because Jude Law was his dad and he died. And so his uncle took him in, and then he disappeared. And so he's trying to evade Sacha Baron Cohen so that he doesn't get sent to the orphanage. And the clocks continue to run at the train station where, knowing what time it is to get on the right train is, I guess it's important. We don't do that in America, so I couldn't tell you for sure.
Here's the thing: you're thinking it's mistaking it for an animated film. I'm remembering that Tintin came out in the same year, which obviously was live action / animated. And you do have a younger character, and you've got the 2 policemen that are kind of always kind of chasing him and running after him.
Set in a similar era as well.
Yeah, so I'm wondering if there's a thing between the two of those, maybe, or maybe not. I don't know.
Well, while Asa Butterfield is dodging Sacha Baron Cohen, he runs into an old man, and the old man runs a little toy shop, and so I guess he's shoplifting gears or something. He gets accused of it at least, and so he has to like work for the grumpy old man to make it up to him. But it turns out the grumpy old man has a past. He was the greatest filmmaker of the early silent era, and then his films unfortunately fell into fell out of favor, and he sadly actually did have to melt down a bunch of those movies. Or he didn't have to melt them down, he sold them, and they were melted down. Pretty much everything about Georges Méliès in this movie is true. I think the only things that aren't true was he had a different wife when he was actually making the movies, and the lady he's with in the movie, he wasn't with her until 1925. Other than that, I don't know of any other inconsistencies.
Fairly sure
the
automaton is a plot device.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And the book that they find all the information from, I think, was also made up for this. I don't know if the guy, is it René Tabot or whatever his name is? I don't know if he's made up for this.
I think he's made up as well.
I'm fairly sure the book is at the very least.
Yeah. But as far as Georges Méliès's life, like, yeah, he didn't make that one specific automaton, but he made them, or he dabbled in it. But yeah, I mean, this is pretty much a fun story about a kid learning about a movie maker. which is kind of funny. Like, is Scorsese maybe hoping somebody will watch this and then discover him? I don't know.
I think that's very much the intention. I think it's like just sneak in a bit of film education to what's seen as like a throwaway kind of kids, cuddly kids movie.
Yeah.
And obviously replicating the clock tower and the train arriving at the station at various points as well.
Yeah. Oh, this movie, it does have a nightmare sequence that's pretty scary, where the train does not stop and plows through the whole station, and it's his fault. And then the train flies out through a window, like it's coming at the audience.
But the way that the train kind of comes out of the window, then folds, drops down onto the street level, and that's replicating the shot of the train in the Méliès film at the end. That's the replication. Because I initially saw it and went, is that meant to be like is it the General, the Buster Keaton one where they blow up the thing? But I'm like, no, because it's not exactly the same. But then they re-showed that one at the end. It's like that's what they're getting it from. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's fascinating how they reconstruct. I mean, for me, these are the most exciting sequences, how they reconstruct Méliès's kind of factory, and kind of how kind of bringing like that kind of carnival roadside attraction magician type aspects into, putting adding in cameras and creating real magic essentially for for audiences, in a different way. I love seeing, him, with this big, the sets, trying to doing a million things at once, on running around and doing every job, and trying to direct everyone. It's it's interesting how they portray that.
Yeah, it's really cool to see that. It's fun to see, like, for somebody that watches silent films, but they don't get made in the same way now. Getting to actually watch like what goes into getting the scene with the guys with swords and the dragon and all that, like arranging it and lining it up, doing the magic, and then watching him like cut the film, also fun.
After telling them to stop, okay, can we get the guys out? Can we get the pyrotechnics guys in? Like, warriors, hold your positions, 3, 2, 1, and go. And doing it like that. It's a beautiful kind of thing.
Yeah, and all the performances are good. Everything is bathed in the warm, nostalgic yellow light, except for the particularly sad scenes where it's very blue. But keeping it simple, clearly worked out because they won the Academy Award for Best Cinematography.
I was going to say, it got nominated for 11 Oscars, and obviously we rip the Oscars until it supports our arguments, because this is how it works. So it got nominated.
Yeah, I mean, I like it. I think it does some interesting things. It's not one I go back to regularly. It's I saw this as intended when it first came out. I think I was at uni when this came out. I saw it in 3D in the cinema, and it was interesting at the time to see 3D used for this kind of film. It's slightly different to the normal avatars or superhero stuff. It's just a bit different, and it's kind of interesting to see how you can use 3D to just create an environment. To create a slightly kind of an environment from like another era. It's kind of interesting to see. I mean, it's not one I've gone back to regularly over the years, because I think you probably won't top the first time I saw that at the cinema. But I like it. You got Chloe Grace Moretz, riding high off. So it's about the same time she did Kick-Ass, wasn't it? I think she did these two in quick succession. So,
and I will point out that the year before she'd done Let Me In. I wonder if we've discussed that recently. By any chance?
Yes, I did. Yes, I did. Doing those three. I mean, she's working with some interesting directors at this point, wasn't she?
Yeah, certainly so. But yeah, so it got nominated for Best Picture, Director, Adapted Screenplay, 1 for Art Direction, 1 for Cinematography, none for Costume, Editing, Original Score, 1 for Sound Editing, Sound Mixing, and Best Visuals. Thank God it won for Best Cinematography, because I mean, I know it's slightly cheesy in the fact that the entire thing is just kind of same aesthetic. It's like, just do it. Every single shot has to look like it's just kind of steampunk wet dream for a thing. But you know what? It looks glorious and it looks gorgeous, and I don't care because like I'm there watching it, and it's like, again, it's been like nearly 10 years since I've seen this. I'm watching it again going, I love everything about this movie.
Even when it's stylized, it's unobtrusive. Like
Yeah.
I do love really bold films, but I think this has, a definite boldness to it where it is able to look like you're watching a storybook.
Yeah,
But
that's the kind of the point. It is a fantastical world because it is the world of kind of Méliès dreams. That is the entire point, and the two have to reflect each other. It is the world of Jules Verne that Etta Butterfield characters has read so much of, and these kind of mechanical inventions. I mean, obviously, Jules Verne, two of his novels, From the Earth to the Moon and Around the Moon, are two of the major inspirations for A Trip to the Moon, with First Men on the Moon by H.G. Wells kind of being the third kind of piece to kind of tie it all together, which I'm guessing that's why they put specifically Verne in. Obviously, Verne was a French writer as well, but I'm guessing that's in. And these kind of fantastical voyages kind of thing. The only thing you don't have is you don't have some kind of big machine inside the top of the Eiffel Tower, which would really tie it all together, because that's the other conspiracy theory.
Also, Chloe Grace Moretz has read all of Les Mis because she's French.
Yeah, well, no, Chloe Grace Moretz is doing Discount Hermione Granger, let's be fair. Like, if you swapped her out for Emma Watson in sort of like 2003, there would be no difference at all.
This is also an example of whenever English-speaking audiences need Europeans, they're played just all by British people. I think Sacha Baron Cohen is trying to do a little bit of a French accent for comedic effect. But everybody else is just British or trying to be British.
Yeah. And obviously, I had forgotten that Christopher Lee was in this, and so he just appears and I was like, hey, my boy's back. Oh, miss him so much. But yeah, I just like, and he's playing a librarian as well. It speaks to my heart. I think maybe like being the slight Méliès fanboy, kind of seeing this again now, knowing who he is, and you seeing stuff like him teaching that's a Butterfield, whatever his character's name. What is the main kid's name? It's Hugo, isn't it? It's the name of the film.
It's Hugo.
Yeah, can we edit that out in post, please?
Because I also forgot.
Hugo Cabret, isn't it? I was about to say Colbert. I was like, no, it's not Colbert. Anyway, but seeing him like teaching you how to like the fanning cards, because obviously he was a magician first and foremost. Again, the Robert Houdin Theatre is where Houdini got his name from because they were friends. And seeing that and seeing the replaying of the films and stuff like that, I don't know whether it's like it was always going to make me obscenely happy and sad at the same time and bittersweet, because doing essays. The first film essay I did at university was on A Trip to the Moon. I put A Trip to the Moon for the film magazine in my top the best films ever made, and it is still one of my favorite films. So seeing this again now with understanding the context and everything like that, like it's just it's joy to my heart, and it probably will be once if I go on a family film. I was like, maybe Hugo, I'll come back to it. And there are things, again, like Hugo now hanging off the clock tower, I think is one of those images which kind of, like, modern icon, if we don't realize it. It's one of those things where kind of, the film even without kind of, there are some films you show a still from it and it's like, haven't got a clue. You show Hugo hanging off that, we know what it is, we know who did it, we know who else is in it. It's one of those that I think is kind of seeped into the cult, into a large part of the kind of, cinephile kind of cultural subconscious without recognizing it. And I love that about that. It's just
but that's because nobody knows the safety last version, which is why Scorsese put it in. So
I mean,
so
I
that
knew
people
it.
would learn it.
Here's the thing: I couldn't have told you what the name of the film was. It's like I know it, I'm seeing it, I just can't remember what the actual film is.
Well, other aside from being a cinephile manifesto, it really does show the history of film and like what the time spectrum looked like for like they were at a point in time in like 1925-ish, whenever this movie takes place.
Yeah.
They were at a point in time where society had forgotten about Georges Méliès, which was real.
1931.
Yeah, okay, 31. People were not watching his movies. Culture had passed him by, and it took like an actual rediscovery and people looking for and hunting down his films to bring it back into the French consciousness.
Tragically in France especially that was the case. You know, it's completely forgotten and essentially, you know, was on the verge of dying a pauper. You know, just you know, but yeah, thankfully, you know, since, you know, obviously he's regained his place, you know, as this revolutionary, this artistic revolutionary, you know, and just literally helped birth the whole medium as we know it. But yeah, I think it probably broke his heart, you know, that you know, we lost those audiences and he was just forgotten and just, you know, living in poverty in Paris. You know, must have been a tough few years.
Well, it reminded me of the in Sunset Boulevard, the love interest talks about how she's third generation Hollywood, and like, you know, it's just weird to conceive of the movie industry going all the way back to over 100 years ago. It's crazy. So.
Yeah, so I'm just looking it up. It's set. Hugo is set in 1931, which very slightly throws the timing out. But again, this is a fantastical kind of adaptation of what might have happened. It's not actual events, because he was kind of rediscovered in sort of 24, 25, 26, that kind of thing. So that by 1931, I vaguely remembered this.
I'm picturing
which is the
like
year
the French New Wave guys. It's a silent film. No, you need to watch these directors.
Yeah, but he in 1931 he was made a Chevalier de Légion d'Honneur, which I'm guessing is the highest and most prestigious French national order. So it's essentially like getting French knighted.
It's a French knight.
French knighthood, but it was presented to him by Louis Lumière.
Which I vaguely screws up all of his soldiers to go into battle.
Yeah, it's the fact that obviously, and actually that is a thing that Méliès tried to get the rights to the camera off him, but the Lumière brothers essentially were kind of told by their dad to don't give it to anyone because there'll be a passing phase. You want as much money as you can get from this as you can before it completely disappears. So they didn't give him the camera. He didn't, like, you know, disassemble his automaton to make a camera, but he did have to make his own. So there is stuff like that. But yeah, it just, so the timeline is very slightly off. But I vaguely did remember that it was one of the Lumière brothers that gave them essentially this knighthood, which I think is a very nice.
Look out, the knighthood's coming out. Just kidding.
It's coming out the screen. Run away.
Oh, and that's another thing. That people didn't actually think the train was coming at them. They understood it was a movie. But this film does perpetuate that myth. Yes. But if Martin Scorsese was ever going to make a kids film, I mean, what else would it be? I mean, it's going to be he's going to lean into, I'm making a family children's movie, something that's accessible, but also celebrates, you know, something about movies. Because at the core of everything he makes, there's an appreciation for what was that movie like when I was a kid.
Well, I mean, this is what threw me when you mentioned that it wasn't originally Scorsese, because, like, I'm just like, Hugo, I've seen the film. It is about Georges Méliès, directed by Martin Scorsese. Yeah, that tracks. Like, it's just completely, like, it's not the aesthetic.
It does seem like something he'd come up with,
yeah. But with Age of Innocence, he doesn't subvert it. He leans into it. And that's, I think, his greatest ability as a director is he's not going to, you know, if Quentin Tarantino made this, it would be a very different movie and it would not be a kids and family movie. I don't know if he could make it.
Yeah. But it is a very beautiful movie, I think. I think more people should revisit it, because I think it's one of those ones that people might have seen and then kind of forgotten about. It's just like, oh yeah, that was the Méliès movie that Scorsese did.
And by the way, if Coppola, I mean, he did make kids movies, but if he were going to make a kids movie, I think he would make Manny's Orphans.
Well, Francis Ford Coppola in Manny's Orphans. Wow.
Amazing.
Actually, you know what? If he was making it 35, 40 years ago, I'd like to see it. Now, I would not like to see it.
Well, he would have been making it in the 80s when he was desperate for cash.
That would definitely have been interesting.
Yeah. So there you go. There's some family movies. I would argue only one of them you should show to your kids.
Well, one of them you can probably not find. The other one, yeah, is a thing. Hugo is amazing.
Yeah. Yeah, we'll leave it to you to decide which one you show to your kids. But until that decision is made, guys, where can people find you?
You can find me at SSP Thinks Film and at the Second Cut Pod Substack.
Nice save.
Yeah, I nearly said it, didn't I? God, Jesus. Where today I've posted my review of Highest to Lowest, the Spike Lee Kurosawa remake, which I really enjoyed, and it's worth a watch. It's on Apple now, so if you've got Apple, check it out. If you haven't, then wait a few months and it'll be available elsewhere. But yeah, it's worth a look, and check out my review of that.
Yeah, hopefully you don't find me anywhere. If you do, I can go judgmental in the various places, including the Substack, obviously. I will get something out at some point. I've been fairly busy recently.
And you can find me at Jacob Film Guy. I watched The Conjuring, but I'm not writing about it. It doesn't deserve it. Yeah,
I'm sure at some point I'll have to do, because I think The Long Walk comes out this week and things like that. So maybe I'll get for that.
Yeah. So that's it. Thank you for listening, and goodbye.
There it is.